Welcome back to the Fantasy Brothers podcast. Ben's rubbing his face. It's that kind of day.
You got to get the goatee straight, my man. I can't go with the as full scraggly look as you can. I got to be professional.
Listen, I recorded a video that's going to go up on social here in a couple days. Like yesterday.
Me?
Yes. And man, I look scraggly. You're going to see it. You're going to know exactly which one it is too, because you're going to watch it and you're going to be like, oh, this video is fine and cool and dandy. Josh, you look like a caveman.
You look horrible.
You look like you rolled out of bed. Because I did.
Are you ever going to cut your hair?
Never. Okay. It is my power.
It's not a lot of power then, man. You are not intimidating.
It's like Samson chops his hair off and instantly just shrivels.
You can't shrivel much more. I could afford some shriveling. You, on the other hand, there's nowhere for it to go.
Oh, we're off to a great start. We've got a great episode today. It's already a great episode. We could end it now. It's already good.
Was it a minute and a half? Yeah, we go.
Minute and a half. You can exit the premises now.
We're already mad at each other. Look at that.
We got some breakouts, some sleepers. We also got the sparse news that you can find in early parts of July in fantasy. It's really people who don't know anything reporting things about which they don't know, and then we take it as fact because we are fantasy football players.
They may know things, but these things aren't worth knowing.
That's probably a good way to put it.
Yeah.
And they don't even really know the things that aren't even worth knowing. They kind of halfway know them, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a weird situation. Well, the one thing we do for sure know is that Devontae Parker signed a 3-year, $33 million deal with the New England Patriots.
This made me really upset.
So once again, we get to return to our Kenny Golladay rant, where we get to talk about NFL players that suck and how much money they make.
Well, this upset me for kind of the one main reason is DeAndre Hopkins still is not signed as of the recording of this video. There were a lot of rumors that he was going to the Patriots, and then this, like, I see breaking news from ESPN and Sleeper on my phone, and I see New England Patriots and wide receiver, and I'm like, oh my God, it happened. They just signed DeAndre Hopkins, and it's like 3-year, $33 million deal. I'm like, oh, wow. And I open my phone, and it says, no, it's not DeAndre Hopkins. I read it wrong. This is Devontae Parker. And I thought maybe there was like a typo. They put the wrong name in. Like, no. It's Devontae Parker. It's not DeAndre Hopkins.
Yeah. For his $33 million, he delivered 539 yards and 3 touchdowns last year.
Hey, man, you spend your money how you see fit.
Bill, once again, reminding us how great a GM he is, that he is the class of roster construction.
At least he got an OC this year.
Yeah, I mean, he does have a legit OC. I have heard a lot of buzz from just like in talking with fantasy players and messages and stuff that like people are excited about what the New England offense could be, and you know,
I will say originally, obviously DeAndre Hopkins could still go sign with anybody, but I was like when the first rumors about New England were coming out, I was kind of disappointed. I'm like, really? Like the Chiefs, the Bills, Chargers, like all these people, like it'd be great if he went there. Realistically, the Patriots is not a terrible option. I mean, he's going to walk into immediately a monstrous target share with, I mean, Mac Jones is pretty good. Not pretty good. He's all right.
He's fine.
I feel like he can support DeAndre Hopkins.
So how would you feel about that offense if they get both DeAndre Hopkins and Dalvin Cook? Because a lot of people think that is very possible. I guess at the bare minimum, it's probably DeAndre Hopkins. I think that feels like a thing that could very well happen. The Dalvin Cook thing is a little bit more of a stretch, but even still, that seems like a thing that could very possibly happen.
Ramondre truthers like yourself would be very upset by this. There's multiple Dalvin Cook landing spots that would make you in particular highly upset. What was one you put on the story the other day? What was that? It was the Jets if he went there.
Yes, I I would find the tallest thing that you could actually get to and jump off of it.
Your Miata.
If you see me doing jumping jacks in the garage, you'll know what I'm doing.
Jumping off your tiny little car.
Breece Hall would be terrible. That would be unfortunate. Listen, if he goes to the Patriots and it kills Ramondre, you know what?
That's better than it killing Breece. I mean,
I will take that bullet because the team that's got Ramondre can withstand to lose Ramondre. I can survive that. I cannot survive a silver bullet to Breece Hall right now.
yeah, I would hate it for Ramondre, but I wouldn't like it for Dalvin either, because it's not like Ramondre is going to go anywhere. Like he's there, they're going to use him. So it's really, that would just be good for Hopkins.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Hopkins, honestly, I mean, I don't know how you feel about it, but if he goes to the Patriots, he would be a top 12 receiver automatically, I think.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, he's walking into 150 targets probably. I mean, who else do they have? Is Devontae Parker going to be the one taking targets away from him? I'm not scared of Devontae Parker.
Juju Smith-Schuster is like an okay slot receiver, but that's it.
I mean, like when he was in Arizona, he's dominating targets with Marquise Brown on the other side, and Marquise Brown is light years better than Juju Smith-Schuster.
100%. Yeah. Yeah, D-Hop, my gosh, he'd be really, really good.
Yeah.
We have a quote from Frank Reich. It's not really a quote. It's Frank Reich on video saying that he wants Miles Sanders to get like the full 3-down workload to have. All of us do. Everybody.
I'm a big fan of Miles Sanders, and I know you're really high on him this year. So
Yes.
we both are pulling for this big time.
Let's put it this way. We've got a reel coming out this week about why you should draft Miles Sanders.
Yeah, Miles Sanders is going to be really good.
We're very
I mean,
in on
who
it.
else is there? Chuba Hubbard?
Yeah.
Chuba
exactly.
Hubbard couldn't take over from Donta Foreman. So, Miles' backfield, man.
And that contract, too. I mean, I don't think we
4
talked about
years, $50 million or something like that?
No. No. It was like 3 years, like 20-something million, I think. I need to look it up exactly. But in the running back market today, it was very much a solid
Yeah, this was
contract.
like the best deal like you could have, a second running back contract could have been.
Right.
Which
That's
is crazy when you've got guys like Josh Jacobs and Saquon Barkley can't get contracts, and then the underling guys like Miles Sanders, who like same draft class or been in the league about the same time as them, kind of come in, get the lower contract, and will probably be better long-term options.
Yeah, he ended up getting a 4-year, $25.5 million contract.
Yeah, I'll take that in a heartbeat, man.
Not bad at all for a running back. So, yeah, I'm very excited for them to be saying in public, essentially, that he's going to get the pass catching work. That's great. I mean, he had 1,300 yards rushing last year. He did nothing in the passing game, and he was still the RB15. So if you give him 250 carries, you also give him 40 catches. That's top 12 stuff.
I mean, last time that Miles was really used as a receiver was his rookie year, and he was the RB14 that year.
So there you go.
Yeah.
And he did not have 1,300 yards that year. I will spoil that for you right now.
He had 800 rushing yards and 3 touchdowns.
Exactly.
I think he will, fully healthy, he will surpass that rushing this season.
What do you realistically think he's going to end up with? Assuming he doesn't get hurt, assuming he plays like a usual normal number amount of games, like 15-ish, 14-ish games.
Realistically, I'm guessing somewhere between 1,100, 1,200 yards, probably 6 to 8 rushing touchdowns, and if he can get another 40 to 50 catches, I don't know, I'm thinking 300, 400 yards there. Like, that's a heck of a season Miles Sanders is about to have.
That's about where I'm at too. Yep, I think we're on the same page there.
Yeah.
Last couple of bits here. The Jets giving us all kinds of word salad, saying they're not guaranteeing that Breece Hall will start week 1. I don't think that surprises anybody. He's coming off an ACL injury. But I personally don't expect the ACL to really impact him all that much, to be honest with you.
Yeah. I think once he's back on the field, he's going to be fine.
As assuming Dalvin Cook does not end up a Jet, I am going to be approaching Brees Hall like he has no injury at all. Honestly, I just don't think the ACL is going to affect him all that much. At least enough to consider it when I'm drafting him or when I'm considering trading for him or things like that.
Yeah, for sure.
Speaking of Dalvin Cook, he got offered a contract by the Miami Dolphins, which would be best case scenario for Dalvin Cook to sign.
We'll take that.
Listen, I don't care about Devon Achane. I might draft him in a rookie draft a couple times, but listen, you can take my Devon Achane and poop all over him. Just leave my Ramondre and my Brees Hall alone.
Well, I feel like it's not that difficult to poop on Devon Achane. Like, you could probably do that with nobody else there. I mean, the holes in his profile, I get he's fast and they just added him to an offense that loves fast people, but he weighs like $160, man.
Okay.
If he gets the ball more than 10 times a game, he's going to die.
He's like 185. Let's not.
When was the last time a 185 running back was good? Like, people are
Never
concerned of Jahmyr Gibbs because he weighs 200.
Yeah, no, he is not going to be a workhorse back ever.
No.
That will not happen. So yeah, why don't we hop into some breakouts here? Kick us off. We both love this guy.
I'm very happy about this one. I kind of felt bad when I took it. The main reason I took it was because I got to the show doc before you did. And
yes,
that is where we're at. But I'll let you talk on this one too, because this is your darling, and I've been very fond of him the past few years as well. It's Cam Akers. We've been calling about this for about 3 years now, and I think this is the year it finally happens. We are 2 years now removed from the Achilles injury. We saw what he did the end of last year. Last year was kind of a freak year for whatever reason. They just refused to use him most of the season, and then the last quarter or so, they finally decided, hey, let's give Cam Akers the ball and see what he's got. And he scored 18, 8, 11, 33, 13, and 14 points. Like, he was great to end the season. He's done that before, too. His rookie season, he was great to end the year when they finally started giving the ball. Then the Achilles, then he came back. And, yeah, I think this is finally it for Cam Akers. Who else is on the depth chart? I mean, it's Kyron Williams. Is Ronnie Rivers still there? I think he may be in the mix. They just signed Sony Michel. They drafted, Zach Evans. But the fact that they bring in Michel concerns me. That they don't really trust Kyron Williams. It concerns me for Kyron Williams and Zach Evans, not Cam Akers, that they have to bring in a 30-something-year-old back to add extra depth, and there's no guarantee.
I really thought you were about to say Sony Michel concerns me, and I was like, Ben, you don't deserve to have him in the show.
No. Don't hear what I'm not saying here. That concerns me about the depth that the Rams have, which is almost nothing, which means it is Cam Akers' backfield and Cam Akers alone right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's safe to say he survived the Achilles dip, right? He has been productive post-Achilles injury. We've finally seen him be good. And not only was he good, he was good on a terrible version of the Rams team. He did not do this at the beginning of the year when people were still healthy. He did this the last 4 weeks of the season when everybody was hurt. There was no Matt Stafford, no Cooper Kupp. Their offensive line was destroyed. Baker Mayfield was the starting quarterback. They were bad, and Cam Akers dominated. So I think people looking at Cam Akers like they're terrified about the Rams roster situation, which frankly, there are question marks. Like, I'm not convinced they're going to figure it all out this year, but we've seen him be good on a bad team already. And this is, they're going to be better than they were at the end of last season. Like, they were bad last year because everybody got hurt. All those guys are back now. So, I would imagine at least it's a little bit better of a situation than the one he kind of dominated with at the end of last year.
Yeah, and it feels kind of crazy because you think about some other guys that have gotten hurt. Like, you got Javonte, like, we're worried they're going to – they've already brought in Samaje Perine. Maybe they bring somebody else in. There's worries about Brees Hall. maybe somebody brings like Dalvin Cook, like we talked about earlier, and it's happened in previous history before. The lead back gets hurt with a bad injury and never kind of gets there, and they just sort of bring someone else in, and he never takes over. Cam Akers, they've never brought anybody in who can really challenge Cam Akers at all. So yeah, I think he's been very fortunate, and I think this is the year it's going to finally pay off.
Yeah, I mean, you always have I call it the word salad in the offseason when the coaches are saying coach speak things, and you really kind of have to just take it with a grain of salt.
Were they going to go out there and talk crap about their players? Yeah, Cam Akers is not a good player.
Sean McVay came out, at the beginning of last year, at the beginning of this year already, and he's basically said Cam Akers is our guy. And while that's nice, I don't think like that's the reason why we're excited. I think why we're excited is what the team is telling us about Cam Akers, not like the coach speak is telling us about Cam Akers. What the team is telling us is we don't think Cam Akers is bad enough that we need to go out and get a replacement for him, because if they thought that, they would have gone out and gotten a replacement for him.
They would have gotten somebody better than Kyron Williams or Zach Evans.
Right. I mean, like, Dalvin Cook is a free agent. You hear no buzz that he's going
Kareem
to
Hunt
the Rams.
is still out there. Leonard Fournette is still out there. Ezekiel Elliott.
Right. None of these guys are getting signed by the Rams. If they do, that makes us a little risky. But as of right now, they have signed nobody of note.
Yep. And I don't even think there's like rumors of them signing any of these guys either.
Yeah, I haven't really heard anything. I feel like a lot of those guys just, there's no market for them, and when people get hurt, they'll end up signing.
I mean, they will end up on teams before, if they're not signed by week 1, they'll end up somewhere. But it's crazy right now.
Yeah, so fingers crossed that Cam Akers, it's finally the year. I remember, I think it was 2 years ago, I had him ranked as like my RB6. And I was like, this is risky. Achilles.
It could have paid off. I mean, we will never know.
No.
We really won't.
We might find out this year.
Yeah.
My first breakout, this one, it kind of surprises even me, but it just feels like it's too obvious. It's Treylon Burks, wide receiver for the Tennessee Titans. Listen, this is a combination of talent and situation where the Titans' depth chart at wide receiver is pretty much non-existent. I consider the Titans wide receiver room to be the worst in the NFL. Like, it's Nick Westbrook-Akine, it is Treylon Burks, it is Kyle Phillips. I mean, these are not names that excite you, frankly. I've got their I've got their number 2 pass catcher being Chikakonkwo, the tight end. Like, there's just not a lot there.
That's why you were so high on him when we made our post about tight ends.
Yeah. I don't even know if Chikakonkwo is any good. It's just like he's shown flashes of being good, and there's nobody there. Like, somebody's got to catch the ball. So, Treylon Burks. I do think Treylon Burks is talented. While all the other guys I feel like are just jags, Treylon Burks, to me, I think is actually a talented wide receiver, and he showed flashes in spurts last year. And he averaged like 13.5 yards a catch. He's probably going to get an enormous amount of volume. I could see him being the sort of guy that ends up with like 130, 140 targets, assuming he stays healthy, just because like somebody's got to catch the ball, and it might as well be Burks.
Well, they essentially traded A.J. Brown straight up for him.
He's got to do it. I think I'm like looking at his game logs, right? You're trying to look for, does he have the ability to be good? Does he show big play potential? I mean, he's got games of 3 catches for 55 yards, his first ever NFL game. Okay, big plays. 7 catches, 111 yards against Green Bay. That's nice. 4 for 70 against Cincinnati. That's nice. 4 for 66 against Dallas. That's nice. It's a lot of like flash. It's not just he's a guy, he caught some balls, 11 yards a catch, like nothing flashy. No, Treylon Burks, if you get him the ball, he's going to make things happen. And I think that's what we saw from him in college. And, I had him for a period as my wide receiver 1 in that draft class. And then, after the draft, after training camp, he ended up dropping down a little bit. But there was a period there, like before the draft, before we knew landing spots or anything, where I thought Treylon Burks was going to translate to the NFL better than the other guys.
when I was just watching tape, I was sitting there like, all right, I'm trading everything to get this guy.
Yeah, dude. I mean, he looks good. It's a you don't want to overvalue the talent because the situation is not great. But you can't write off the talent because the situation's not great. Like there's a balance that you have to play there. So I don't know if as a competing team I want to go trade for Traylon Burks to be my wide receiver 2, but if I'm a rebuilding team, yeah, yes, I'm going to go trade for Traylon Burks because I think he can be really good in the future. And I think it's very possible that he ends up being a sleeper even this year as well.
Are you thinking he pushes for low end wide receiver 2 range, or are we kind of solid flex kind of thing?
I feel like it's safe to say he's more of a solid flex, but like, what's the worst he can be? In my mind, it's a wide receiver 3, which is a guy that's probably in your flex in most leagues. I do think he could end up in like the mid wide receiver 20s, but likely, I mean, he's probably late 20s, early 30s kind of finisher. Um, I just don't think that people like view him that way, to be honest with you.
No, and I agree. I mean, listen, when I'm on the clock, he's coming drafts like, and Traylon Burks is there. I mean, that's not a very sexy pick. Like, I'm not excited about it, but
It is not sexy. It is really not. But you know, I think when I'm on the clock, and it depends on your team too, because not every team construction is going to be looking to add Traylon Burks, but you're looking at like, is he actually talented? If he's talented, I'll take a shot on him, and I do think he is talented.
oh yeah. I mean, the comp everyone likes to overuse is it's AJ Brown, but he looks like AJ Brown.
Yeah. I think I've gotten out of the habit of looking at team situation and that being the thing that I use to determine if a player is going to be good or not, because it just doesn't correlate.
Yeah,
It's
I think
talent.
it's and I agree with what you're saying, and I'm having trouble just getting over just how bad I think the Titans passing attack is going to be.
I know.
But I agree with you. Like, it's sometimes just take the situation away, look at the talent.
Yeah, and I think it's a ballsy kind of shot in the dark because I really think the Titans are bad. But they're going to crawl across a field of glass to get 7 or 8 wins for Mike Vrabel next year. We know that's going to happen.
Derrick Henry's going to touch the ball 400 times probably.
Most likely.
Yeah.
Hit us with your second breakout.
All right, this one I really hope happens, just because he was so good as rookie. It's Elijah Moore. I think things are finally going to turn the corner. I think he got a little bit too much hate last season. I mean, he was great his rookie year, right before he got hurt, with no name quarterbacks. I mean, who were these guys? He had Mike White. He had I don't even know who else. Zach Wilson is obviously horrible. And that's what he's been dealing with for the past 2 years. And he wanted out. I don't blame him. Towards the beginning of last year, they bring in Garrett Wilson, a truly dominant alpha wide receiver 1. So, yeah, he loses a whole bunch of target share there. Gets traded to the Browns for really not that much. But I think this is where things can finally turn around for him. He's 23 years old. He's a second-round draft pick. Everyone thought he was super, super talented when he was coming into the league. He was projected actually to go round 1 to the Titans before who did the Titans end up taking? I can't remember who they took. But anyway, he was supposed to go in round 1 of the draft. And now you come to a team to where Amari Cooper's the wide receiver 1. But the last time we saw Deshaun Watson, like truly in Deshaun Watson form, his wide receiver 2 was Will Fuller, and he made Will Fuller look good. And that was with DeAndre Hopkins on the field. Amari Cooper is no DeAndre Hopkins, no prime DeAndre Hopkins. I think as good as Amari Cooper is going to be, I think there is a real chance Elijah Moore can shine and potentially outshine Amari Cooper given things go right, because he is that talented and that good a receiver. And you're in a situation with a good quarterback like Deshaun Watson, who I expect to bounce back.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what to do with Deshaun Watson. I have not made up my mind about that offense as a whole. I've taken a couple shots on Amari Cooper.
And I'm not saying Amari Cooper is going to be bad. When I'm saying that, I do think Amari Cooper is going to be good. But this is more, I think there is more than enough opportunity on a team where Deshaun Watson can finally, hasn't played football for 2 years. He can finally get in his groove. He's had an entire offseason with these guys. This is where things could start to turn around for the Cleveland Browns offense.
Yeah, and I mean, he had the 3 years in a row of being a top 5 fantasy quarterback. It's a bit of the Russell Wilson conundrum where you've got a guy who proved over multiple seasons that he's really, really good and then had a bad year. And then you just had to figure out how much stock you put into it. Because I think if you believe Deshaun Watson is going to be even a top 10 quarterback in real life this upcoming season, Elijah Moore is going to be a value because the wide receiver 2 in an offense with the top 10 quarterback, especially one like Deshaun Watson that, even though they've got David Njoku, Deshaun Watson typically hasn't targeted tight ends a ton. He's been a wide receiver heavy targeting kind of guy. And maybe it's because he had Will Fuller and Brandon Cooks. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I expect if that ends up being the case, that Amari Cooper and Elijah Moore both end up beating their ADP personally.
Yep. And obviously we're both very high on Nick Chubb this coming season.
Yes.
But that being said, they really don't have a second option. So they're going to run the ball a lot with Nick Chubb, but there's really no pass catching running back in that offense outside of him. So I don't know. I feel like that just opens up more options for the slot receiver like Elijah Moore.
Yeah. I mean, I could certainly see it. And there's been some rumors coming out of camp that, he's lighting things up, that he's playing really well. So I don't know. I see the thing with Elijah Moore is I don't know when I would draft him.
Let's look at ADP.
Like, give
right
me a
now.
couple of the names going around him, because that's where I would be like really curious is when I'm on the clock and making that decision, who am I having to choose between? Is it Elijah Moore and, is it George Pickens or?
Right now, directly ahead of him is Brandon Cooks, Juju Smith-Schuster, Michael Thomas, Jamison Williams, Rashad Bateman, Quentin Johnston, Elijah Moore, Odell Beckham, Alan Lazard, Jacoby Myers.
So if I'm on the clock, the decision I'm making is basically Jacoby Myers, Elijah Moore, or
Odell.
I mean, I could certainly see wanting to take Elijah Moore over those two.
I mean, as much as we like Odell, we're probably going to talk about
how
this
much
a little
do we
bit
like
later in the
Odell?
episode. Well, actually, I said that wrong. Like, Odell's, he's been great his whole year, but he's in a situation. Is he the wide receiver 1 on his team? I'm really not sure.
Know. I have no idea.
It's Lamar Jackson throwing passes. So I don't want the 4th option on that offense by any means.
You don't want the 4th option on any offense, much less one that we're kind of
don't
projecting
believe
to
in
be good.
Jacoby Myers or Alan Lazard at the moment. So yeah, give me the guy who's primed to be the wide receiver 2 on. He's been a top 5 quarterback before.
Yeah.
No reason to say he can't do it again.
Yeah. I mean, some of those other names like Quentin Johnston, I would take
I'd probably
him.
take Johnston there.
I would as well. I'm trying to remember a couple of the other names you threw out.
Bateman and Jamison Williams. Honestly, I think I might take him over Jamison Williams. I'm just not a big Jamison Williams believer, man.
Listen, I drafted Jamison Williams in rookie drafts a ton last year. So if he ends up being good, I'll benefit from it. But like at the same time, I don't believe it.
Elijah Moore or Gabe Davis.
Oh, God.
I'm just looking at ADP here.
Gabe Davis.
Interesting. Okay. I just was curious on that one.
There's very little conviction there, but
there's no. Yeah, you don't sound like it would take much for me to push you over the edge on that one. Like just take
no.
And this one was less of an ADP debate. This was more of I think he breaks out this year.
Yeah, I mean, I think he'll be fine. I think he'll be good. Or like,
I think he finally gives you return on investment this season.
Yeah, I thought. I mean, just even as recently as last year, I thought he was the wide receiver 1 for the Jets offense. And then whatever happened behind the curtain happened, and he got relegated.
I just want the record to show that I was pro Garrett Wilson being over Elijah Moore.
Yeah. Can't win them all.
But in your defense, I didn't think Elijah Moore was going to be that bad.
Oh my God,
Like,
was
just
he bad?
wide receiver 49 for like 3 straight weeks.
Like the whole year.
Yeah. His best game was wide receiver 36. Now it's in like week 15.
Oh. It's bad. Okay. Number 2 breakout. I think I'm actually more excited about this one in a very real sense than I am about the Traylon Burks pick. But I just had to point out Traylon Burks. My number 2 breakout is Jahan Dotson.
I'm more excited about him.
I am very excited, and I'm finding that I am drafting Jahan Dotson. While I'm doing this, why don't you pull up ADP for Jahan Dotson? Because I want to do a little bit of a pick'em as well with him.
Okay.
But here's the argument for Jahan Dotson, right? Terry McLaurin obviously has been the wide receiver 1 for the Commanders for forever. Perennially he's viewed as a great player that just has a bad quarterback situation and hasn't been able to perform. So last season, Carson Wentz is the quarterback, which, that's not much to write home about. And both Terry McLaurin and Jahan Dotson, when they're both playing, are incredible. They're both on pace for 1,100 yards, which, I know Jahan Dotson was a first-round pick, but, looking at that situation and that team, you knew McLaurin was going to be the one. The quarterback situation was not much to be excited about. I didn't think Jahan Dotson was going to be all that good, to be honest with you. He for sure proved me wrong. And then on top of that, weeks 13 to 18 to close the season, he's wide receiver 21. If he played the full season, he's scoring double-digit touchdowns, which is just wild from that team. So I think there's a very real possibility, and I'm not projecting it, but I think it's possible that Jahan Dotson and Terry McLaurin have really similar fantasy seasons this upcoming year, where they both end up 120-ish targets, both end up 1,000+ yards, and then the touchdowns fall where they may. But I'm not sure how, once we get into draft season, once the casuals show up and start doing these drafts, I don't know how Jahan Dotson's going to be valued. So I think he could potentially be a guy where people are like, oh, he plays with the Commanders. They suck. Sam Howell's the quarterback. They're going to be terrible. I don't know. It might be a league-dependent kind of thing.
Value him way higher.
Yes, underdog leagues where people are paying money, he's going to be drafted a lot higher, I think. But
consensus ADP as of right now, this is across multiple platforms, just consensus. They've got him at wide receiver 37 in PPR, which is right behind Traylon Burks, right ahead of Kadarius Toney.
Okay, so I know I just said that Traylon Burks is a breakout. I would rather draft Jahan Dotson than Traylon Burks.
I would absolutely prefer.
I know. Okay, so Traylon Burks, he has shown flashes, right? But the situation's poop, and the Commanders' situation's not amazing.
It's Sam Howell,
but they did bring in Eric Bieniemy. There's the other part of it. So you got to imagine, and frankly, the Commanders' offense is going to be better than the Titans' offense. It's just going to be.
You don't add Eric Bieniemy and be worse than the Titans.
Right. I don't think people realize how bad the Titans are. But, we've seen the flashes from Jahan Dotson as well. The offense is probably going to be a little bit better. I mean, I had to note, is Sam Howell / Jacoby Brissett worse than Carson Wentz? I personally don't think so. I don't even know how good Sam Howell is.
If this is 2016 Carson Wentz, then no.
Right. His
but
MVP
we're not in 2016.
year. We're not in Kansas anymore. We're in 2023, and Sam Howell is probably better quarterback than Carson Wentz.
Carson Wentz is not on a team currently.
And then even if Sam Howell gets benched, I know for a fact Jacoby Brissett is a better quarterback.
I've seen Jacoby Brissett support good receivers before.
Yeah, last year Amari Cooper was a top 12 wide receiver with Jacoby Brissett, and David Njoku. His flash happened when Jacoby Brissett was starting.
Speaking of David Njoku, why was he not in your top 12 tight ends you put out there?
Because I just don't believe it.
But you believe in Chiga Okonkwo?
Listen, somebody's got to catch
Listen.
passes over there.
Listen.
Okay, here's the other thing. Chickaconquo had 2.4 yards per route run last year, which was like number 2 in tight ends. I have it
How many
under good
touchdowns did he
authority.
score?
I don't even remember, like 4 or 5. I have it under
There's
good
no way he
authority.
scored 4 or 5 touchdowns.
I'm about to pull it up. I don't know how much he scored. I am free balling here.
You're talking out of your butt here, Josh.
He played, let's see, it was 3 touchdowns.
That honestly surprises me.
He had 450 yards and 3 touchdowns last year. Listen, I have it under good authority. If a tight end gets 2+ yards per route run in their first 2 years in the league, they're good. The other guys that did this, it was George Kittle, Mark Andrews, Travis Kelce. No, it wasn't Travis Kelce, sorry. He was not good until later on in his career.
Did Pitts do it?
Yeah, Pitts did it his rookie year.
Okay.
So it doesn't happen often, but when it does, I peak. I'm like, okay, Chig, tight ends suck. You're going as like tight end 14. I'll take a shot. So yeah, I just don't really. And also, okay, another thing about tight ends, if you're like tight end 8+, I just don't care. Like, somebody can get mad that I prefer Chigga to Greg Dulcich, or that I prefer, I don't know, fill in the blank, Zach Ertz to David Njoku. They're all going to be terrible. I don't care. Like, yell at me about it, but like, I just don't care. They're going to suck anyway.
There's like a quote unquote big 7. Really, there's Kelce, and then Andrews Hawkinson, tier break, and then you would have Andrews in his own tier, but this is still doesn't really matter that much. Then you got your Kittles, your Goddards, your Wallers, and Pitts. So that's 7 guys.
Yep.
After that, there's a cliff that it drops off of.
A massive cliff. I mean, you can argue for a lot of guys. I mean, you can argue for Freiermuth. You can argue for.
I do like Freiermuth, actually. I feel like I'll draft a lot of him.
Probably
as my
like
late tight end.
as my punt tight end. I might get Freiermuth, but like they're all going to be terrible. So like. Somebody argues with me. They're like, "Oh, why is Zach Ertz in your top 12?" Like, who would you rather have? And they say a name, and I'm like, "Sure,
take him if you want. I don't care.
Take him. I don't care. You're not hurting me. I mean, go for it. Like, he's gonna score you 100 points flat. It does not matter.
Like at that point in your draft, like I'm just gonna get somebody off waivers. Like it's fine.
At that point, I'm streaming.
I'm not drafting a tight end at that point.
At that point, I'll take Greg Dulcich in the 11th round, and then if he sucks and is a tire fire, oh well.
I'll go get Noah Fant off waivers and be happy with that. Yeah.
Yeah. Who cares? Tyler Conklin. I remember him a couple years ago. That was that situation. You're in the Tyler Conklin boat.
We're getting off topic.
Yeah, we are. Where are we at? You're at your first sleep. Are we moving to sleepers?
Are we moving to sleepers? Are you good?
I'm good. I just had to get that off my chest.
Okay.
Hit us with some sleepers.
Calm down. Okay. First sleeper. People, I don't know if people like this, may not. I've got Tyler Algier as
I
my
hate
first
it.
sleeper. I get it, man. Bijan tends to do that. You have a guy, and then you put Bijan in there. How many running backs realistically, if you took Bijan and put it on their team, would still start? I don't know if there's any.
Oh, well, okay.
I mean, maybe McCaffrey.
Christian McCaffrey.
In a real life scenario, you took Bijan and put him on the Chargers. He starts over Eckler. He's the starter. I get the if we're talking fantasy value, Eckler is the better fantasy player. But if you put him on that team, he's the better running back than Austin Eckler.
Yeah.
It's maybe Christian McCaffrey, and that's it.
I could see an argument for Jonathan Taylor.
Yeah. And I love Taylor. I would make that argument because I got to fight for my boy.
I could see if Brees is healthy, a team being like, but you're splitting hairs. It doesn't matter.
So, yeah, he's going to hurt Tyler Algier a lot. But he's currently the running back 42 in ADP. Let me pull up some guys that are going around him. And it's less of, I think Tyler Algier is going to be good this year, and more, I think obviously Bijan is the heavy starter, no questions about it. But you've got to think the situation. Atlanta wants to run the ball, and they want to run it into the ground. We're going to run the ball more than anyone else. Obviously, if there's an injury to Bijan, God forbid, Algier is going to be great. But even still, I think there's potential for him to have some boom weeks, because I think Bijan is going to see a lot of work as a pass catcher as well. So there's going to be time when he runs out in the slot kind of things. We've seen the videos. We've seen the hype train talk. Bijan is going to see all over the field. And when they just need to grind up some clock and hand the ball off, I could see Tyler Algier being a real factor in the offense. He was a rookie who ran for over 1,000 yards. And we've seen it before with James Robinson. These late guys just kind of get phased out. But I still think there's a real chance for him to be a factor in this offense when the only other guy is Cordell Patterson, who's 32 years old right now.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's an offense thing. Because I don't think Algier's super good, but they're going to run the ball.
I do think he's a good player. Not incredibly talented, but he had 1,000 yards last year. And he really didn't start the first 4 or 5 games of the year, so he finished the season with his hair on fire. And, I mean, he still probably can get, with the way we want to run the ball, 100 carries.
Yeah. I mean, I've got him projected for like 100-ish carries around there. I mean, frankly, it's kind of a volume thing when you're looking at him, because like he didn't start a ton of games, but he had 210 carries last year, and he was good on those carries. And also, like, the other part of it is Atlanta has a good offensive line, so
he averaged 5 yards a carry as a rookie.
Yeah, I don't know how much of that is Atlanta has a top 5 offensive line, or at least did last year. Then they lost. What'd you lose? Like a right tackle or something?
I think so, but I can't remember his name.
I can't remember exactly.
It's difficult for me to pay attention to this team.
Yeah. But anyway, Algier's fine. They're going to run the ball. The offensive line's good. Sure.
It's a sleeper.
I'll allow it.
It's a sleeper. What's the worst thing that happens? He doesn't do anything?
The worst thing that could happen is he sleeps.
Yeah, exactly. Sleeper. All right, go for it.
My number one sleeper is Mr. James Cook.
Incorrect.
But let me paint a picture for you. So when we're looking at the Buffalo Bills, in my mind, there are 2 scenarios for how this could play out. Either, and this scenario would suck, and
he's good or bad.
This would, you're right. Yeah. But let's be more specific about it. There's 2 scenarios. There's the scenario where Damian Harris is very involved, and then James Cook and Harris have pretty much a committee, and it's what it was last year, where neither one of them is valuable for fantasy. You hate them both. Or James Cook is the starter, and Damian Harris is his change of pace back. And in that case, I think James Cook would be really good. He averaged 5.5 yards a carry last year. We're talking about Algier being good. James Cook was incredible, and he didn't even have 100 carries. He had over 500 yards. And on top of that, like, I know Nyheim Hines is there, and he's considered a pass-catching back, which he is. But, Nyheim Hines showed up halfway through the season, and, James Cook still had 32 targets, playing less than half the snaps. So, I mean, I could see in the green scenario, James Cook having 60-plus targets, being the starter, and then the other scenario, and this is why he's a sleeper. If the other scenario happens where they're both involved, or even, God forbid, Damian Harris is the primary ball carrier, I don't think that would happen, but I guess theoretically it could. Then he just sleeps and he doesn't break out. But I think that there's a pretty decent chance on a great offense that James Cook is the starter, and if that's the case, nobody really wants to draft him. Just go ahead and draft him later in your drafts, and you might have something.
Yeah, I could see it.
I know you don't want to.
I'm going to be negative because you were negative on my last one.
Fair enough.
But, I mean, I guess I see it. It's still in my mind the CEH situation 2.0. There's not really a better option behind him, but I don't really believe in him either. So,
yeah,
What's his ADP right now?
I don't know. I gotta look it up. You talk about it. I'll find his ADP.
But I mean, I really don't know what. I mean, I think if there's a change of pace back, it's more he's the change of pace to Harris, just because we already know Cook is not built to handle 200 carries a year. So it's probably going to be Harris in that respect. Not saying that I think Harris is better than him by any means. I don't really have much faith in him either.
So he is.
I don't know. It's still going to be where Josh Allen's the lead rusher, I think.
Yeah, probably. He's currently the consensus RB29.
I do not know if I would draft him that high. So right ahead of him, I just pulled it up because I've had it up for the other guys we're talking about. Right ahead of him is Rachaad White, Isaiah Pacheco, Dalvin Cook, James Conner, then James Cook, then Javonte, Antonio Gibson, Zach Charbonnet, A.J. Dillon, Samaje Perine, Alvin Kamara. Wow, Alvin Kamara's at 35. Then Damian Harris, 36.
Well, I'll tell you this. I'll take him over A.J. Dillon. I'll take him over... Who else was there?
Charbonnet, Antonio Gibson.
I'll take him over
Alvin
Charbonnet.
Kamara.
I don't know if I'd rather have Antonio Gibson. I'd probably take Gibson.
I'd probably take Gibson. I think I'd rather, because there's almost a round difference. I think I would rather pass on James Cook and take Samaje Perine the round after that. Or Javonte Williams is going right around him too. Take Javonte and then get Perine the next time.
Yeah. I mean, but at that point, you're double dipping on a backfield and, what if...
But then, I mean, I guess at that ADP, you're more of, I just want the starter there. So it's going to be Perine until Javonte comes back.
I don't know. Could be a kind of thing where we find out in training camp that I was either smart calling this out or very stupid.
And again, I was high on Algier. You're high on James Cook. What's the worst that happens?
I would say I'm high on him. I'm just not. I'm just willing to take the occasional dart throw shot on him.
That's more what we're talking about here.
And what's funny about it is I've got him ranked currently. His ADP is RB29. I've got him ranked at RB29. So, I'm right there.
So you agree?
I agree.
Okay. Well, that's okay. Mine's actually a bigger name. Probably the biggest name we've talked about. It's Christian Kirk, man. I'm excited about Christian Kirk, where his ADP is at. I think people are sleeping on him hard. He's currently the wide receiver 27.
That blows my mind.
That feels way low. And I get it. You just added Calvin Ridley, he's probably going to be the wide receiver 1. I get that. But look at the offense as a whole. Look at what Christian Kirk has done in the past with other dominant receivers. Not that he's necessarily been amazing, but his best quarterback was Kyler when he played in Arizona, and it was with DeAndre Hopkins as the starter. And he had some good, 10, 9. It was usually towards later in the season. He would have 10, 9 targets a game, something like that. And he was pretty good. He comes in last year, obviously breaks out, has a great season with Trevor Lawrence. And I think that offense is ascending. Trevor Lawrence, he's on the path to being great. You just add Calvin Ridley, who's going to pull stuff off of Christian Kirk. And he still, I think, his role is solidified in the offense. I could see a world where he really has. Let me just look at his stats. He had 133 targets last year. I think this probably hurts a Zay Flowers, Evan Ingram, the Ridley edition, more than it hurts Kirk. I don't know what you think.
It's Zay Jones was the wide receiver 17 last year from weeks 12 to 18. He popped. And he popped at the expense of Christian Kirk, who over that stretch was the wide receiver 28. So this was he was out. Week 11 they had their bye. So after the bye, he was wide receiver 28. He struggled a little bit, but listen, Trevor Lawrence is going to be good. They added Calvin Ridley, which I do think that Calvin
hurts
Ridley's
him. I'm not
going to
gonna
be
lie.
good. Yeah, it hurt. So Kirk finished as the wide receiver 12 last year because the start of his season was incredible. But, that's not going to happen. That's not what we're saying here. But at wide receiver 27, that was basically what his floor was. Because if you're thinking about Ridley, so Zay Jones was wide receiver 17 back half of the year. If I'm thinking about Ridley, that's sort of what I'm expecting Calvin Ridley to be. So Zay Jones was already his ADP price when you pretty much bake in what Calvin Ridley is expected to do if he's good.
And when you consider, I think, how good, at least I expect the offense to be, I'm sure you do too, with Lawrence ascending the way he is, this is his second year under Doug Peterson. I think there's a world where it's kind of what we were more expecting from Judy and Sutton last year.
Yeah.
Than I think people realize. I'm guessing Ridley is somewhere between wide receiver 15 to 20. And I think Christian Kirk can kind of be right there behind him. I'm expecting him to be closer to wide receiver 20 to 25, 20 to 25-ish in that area.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, getting a top 24 wide receiver when he's going at like 27 to 30-ish, and that's always nice. It's the little ones.
We've been talking about ADP a lot in this episode, so let's just look at the guys going around him. Right now, he's wide receiver 27. He's going right ahead of DJ Moore, right behind Terry McLaurin and Drake London. I think I'd take him ahead of Drake London, honestly.
I would too, yeah.
Mike Williams, I think I prefer him to Mike Williams.
Yep.
I think people are sleeping on Chris Godwin too, but I think I do take him over Chris Godwin, take him over Brandon Ayuk.
So I would take Ayuk and Godwin over him, but he's there.
Yeah, he's right with those guys.
So, yeah, I think he's solid. He'll be solid. All right.
Last one.
Number 2 sleeper. Let's start us out with a blind reveal before I tell us who this guy is.
I know who it is.
You know who it is. You can see it. But we've got player number 1 and player number 2. So player number 1 is our sleeper. Player number 1 in his 17 career games has 95 targets, 61 catches, 800 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Player number 2 has, in 17 career games, 84 targets, 52 catches, 801 yards, and 4 touchdowns. So, player number 1, player number 2 in 17 career games have pretty much identical numbers. Player number 1 is the sleeper. Player number 2 is George Pickens.
I think you would have to add a lot to your sleeper to get George Pickens in most leagues, honestly.
I think I would. The sleeper's Rashad Bateman, which is a gross name to talk about for fantasy football. And I feel like George Pickens, I looked up some ADP. We're talking ADP. George Pickens goes 2 full rounds ahead of Rashad Bateman in redraft leagues right now.
And I'm not a big Pickens fan.
Yeah. So
let's not talk about Pickens.
We don't need to talk about Pickens.
We're here for Bateman.
So with Bateman, we've been talking about it pretty frequently. We expect the Baltimore Ravens offense to have a huge uptick in passing volume. They have been a low passing volume offense for years. They bring in a new offensive coordinator, sign a bunch of receivers, and get Lamar Jackson signed for the foreseeable forever. They're going to throw the ball more. And while we don't know for sure who the wide receiver 1 is, we just need to look at who these guys are. It's Odell Beckham, who has been a non-factor for fantasy for like 4 years.
Last game we saw him in, he tore his ACL at 29, 30 years old.
Exactly. They drafted Zay Flowers, who I do think is good, but we don't know because they also drafted at the end of the first round Rashad Bateman. And when you just look at the totality and sort of take out the injuries, because there have been a lot of injuries that have kept him off the field, when he's been on the field, he's been pretty productive and he's been pretty decent.
He's very efficient.
He's super efficient. I think that there's definitely a possibility he's the wide receiver 1 in the offense, including Odell being there, including Zay Flowers being there. I think it's possible. But it's also possible like any of those 3 guys are the wide receiver 1. I think people don't view it like Rashad Bateman has a chance to be the wide receiver 1. Any one of those 3 could be the wide receiver 1. The argument for Bateman is that he is the wide receiver 1, or even honestly that he's the wide receiver 2. We know he's probably the deep threat. Actually, he's not probably. He is the deep threat in the offense. Odell Beckham is not going to be the deep threat. Zay Flowers is a slot receiver. So there's a chance that Rashad Bateman even could just end up with some flashy games, some pop games. We know Marquise Brown has had his 5-week stretches with Lamar Jackson where he just goes nuclear on deep balls. It'll happen. Mark Andrews is obviously locked in as the pass catcher number 1. But if they throw the ball 550 times, if Rashad Bateman stays healthy, if he's wide receiver 1, I know it's a lot of ifs, but I think he could end up. That's why he's a sleeper. He could end up being very, very solid. I don't think his ADP right now is very great. I need to look it up, but I do think Rashad Bateman could end up being a value for fantasy. And honestly, when I'm doing push comes to shove and I'm having to draft one of these receivers over the other ones, I would probably lean Bateman, to be honest with you. His ADP right now is currently wide receiver 45. I'm certainly going to take him. I mean, I think he's a wide receiver 3, to be honest with you.
You're going to take him ahead of Michael Pittman?
I'd consider it for sure.
You got to take Pittman there, but
I probably would. But, it's a thought. I had to think about it.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely agree with. I actually like this pick a lot. I mean, we have seen it's kind of like Elijah Moore. We've seen the flashes,
right?
And I think he's honestly probably in a little bit better of a situation than Moore, maybe. Yeah. I mean, we don't know how good Odell can be anymore after an ACL at 29 years old. I know they paid him a lot of money, but the passing offense has concerns that it is. Zay Flowers came out. We think he's a good talent. He's got a lot of juice. He's kind of a quick receiver, but he's a slot guy. He stayed all 4 years in college. That's typically not very.
It's usually not indicative of stardom.
Yeah, indicative. That's a good word I was looking for. It doesn't usually lead to players being star receivers. There's outliers like Chris Olave, but you got to look at the talent that Chris Olave was playing with Garrett Wilson, with JSN, with Marvin Harrison Jr., with Jamison Williams. So there's a reason like a guy like Chris Olave stayed 4 years at Ohio State and was very good in the NFL, or Devonta Smith or somebody like that. Zay Flowers stayed all 4 years in college, and it didn't help him really like it helped some of those other guys. He wasn't playing with elite talent. So do I hope he's good? Yeah, I hope he's good, but there's a lot of questions with him, whereas I think I do agree there's less questions for Rashad Bateman. It's can he stay healthy? That's it. If he stays healthy, I think he has a very good year.
Yeah, honestly. I mean, there's questions for everybody in the offense, but I feel like Bateman probably has slightly fewer questions than the other guys.
I will honestly say if he stays healthy the whole year, I think he is the wide receiver 1 there.
Yeah, I won't call it crazy. I just argued for it. So, I mean, I do think it could certainly happen. It's one of those you'll have to kind of nut up a little bit and do it because you're not going to want to.
Strap in, boys.
You're going to have to. It's going to be tough, but I don't know.
The upside's there.
The upside is there, and that's what you want in sleepers. You want a guy that you know week 1, week 2, I want to know what I got. And frankly, with Bateman's history, he's probably going to be either hurt or healthy by week 2, so you're going to know.
If he doesn't do anything, well, guess what? You didn't pay much to get him.
Exactly. Anything else you want to
add? What do we want to do with our upcoming videos, Josh?
I have no idea.
Should we do redraft rankings?
We
haven't done that yet. We haven't done that.
We really have not hopped into redraft a ton. We should do a mock draft again at some point.
Yeah, we should do mock draft. We should do redraft rankings. We should do a lot of stuff. We're not going to.
Folks, that's exactly how we plan this show, right there.
That is literally what it is. It's like a day or two beforehand, like, hey, what you want to do? And then we figure it out from there. It's kind of like a you up text for fantasy.
Oh, that's a good way to end. We're going to end it there. Thank you guys for listening. If you enjoyed it, check us out on Instagram. We're posting Whole bunch of fantasy content over there. It's Fantasy Brothers _ on Instagram. Rate and review the show if you enjoyed it. That'll do it from us. We'll see you next week.
Peace.